This is a pretty major embarrassment for the government, isn't it?
Well, it's not the way I'd put it, Tom. I'd refer you to Minister Stuart Roberts' statement. I mean, he paused the program last November. They've taken some time to make some assessments and gather up some information, make a determination. And that's now resulted in the return of some of that money that's been acquired over a period of time come the 1st of July.
That's a very sort of matter-of-fact way to put it. The other thing is the people involved. What's your message to 373,000 people who have gone through this stress? People have spoken about having to move house, relationships ending because of these debts they could never repay, all because of the government now admitting something that was calculated on incorrect premise.
Well, Tom, the government has reviewed the process. The minister has made a decision. There is money being returned on a particular date. But I'd also point out that I'm not going to apologise for the fact that there is oversight in what is the single biggest set of programs of any federal government, regardless of their stripe. And in a non-corona type environment, one of the biggest issues that gets raised with me, with my office on a regular basis, is from Australians who are concerned about taxpayer support perhaps being provided inappropriately, or for people who are making claims which are not quite correct. Now, Minister Roberts made significant changes internally, is my understanding, to ensure that there is better opportunities for people to put forward changes of circumstances, and that's also an issue which has been raised.
This program, though, sought to go back many years previously to how long people were previously told they'd have to keep records, and reverse the onus of proof. And now the government's admitting the way this was done was incorrect. Should the government be apologising, or would you apologise to people in your electorate who had a debt notice issued that was incorrect?
Well, as I've said, Minister Stuart Roberts is the shareholding minister. He paused the program. He's made decisions. There is money which is being returned. But once again, I won't apologise for the fact that the government will continue to have oversight on what is our biggest single area of expenditure. And I'll reiterate the point again, Tom. I have any number of people that ring me every single day who believe people are being misleading in their circumstances, perhaps around the location of where they live, or what they may or may not be claiming, or working for cash. Now, I am by no means saying that we shouldn't support individuals in their time of need, but I'm certainly not going to apologise for government oversight.
Not for oversight, but it's the way it's done. Would you apologise for the way it's done? There are people in this, the government's conceded, people have been asked to repay these debts. It's caused a huge stress in their life, and that shouldn't have happened in these cases. So no apology there either.
Well, it's very clearly been an issue. But once again, I'm the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia. Stuart Roberts made statements yesterday. I'm sure he'll make further statements and do further interviews in coming days. Once again, it's their area of expertise, not mine. I don't have a lot of that available information. But a decision's been made and money's been returned.
What about the government's attitude to the timing of this? Last Friday it was JobKeeper, the bungle, emerging late Friday afternoon, again from Stuart Roberts. Voters hate this, don't they? This sort of cynicism, doing it in the cover of a late Friday afternoon.
Tom, I've been in politics 7 years in September. I don't recall anywhere where there's cover of any day. Every day that ends with Y gets news coverage. I mean, in modern media, it's a 24-hour news cycle. I don't think there are quiet periods. And I'm told back in the 80s that the media may have gone for a long lunch on a Friday lunchtime, but I'm fairly confident that's not the case anymore. There is always scrutiny of announcements at any time of the day or night.
Well, yeah, I can tell you the long lunch is dead, unfortunately, but there are fewer eyeballs on a Friday night. What's coincidence, the last 2 weeks?
Oh, it's up to ministers when they make decisions. But once again, every day that ends in Y, there is scrutiny, there is media scrutiny, there's plenty of people who are watching. There is no quiet time in modern politics. It's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Into your portfolio area, the head of Murray-Darling Basin Authority is questioning whether water markets are best fit for the nation. What did you make of those comments?
Well, this is something we have been looking at closely for quite some time. The ACCC is doing a review under the direction of Josh Frydenberg as the shareholding minister. I expect to see something in terms of interim reports in coming months, final reports by November. But very clearly, I've come into the portfolio with a fresh set of eyes. I'm listening to what people are telling me right across the basin in terms of water trading and other matters. And I certainly understand their concerns, which are exacerbated in times of drought, and that's what's happening right now.
That report, though, from the ACCC wouldn't have the power to say, let's get rid of water markets. Phil Glyde is saying they're working as they're supposed to. The problem is it means fewer jobs often in regional areas and also altering the mix of what we grow that's not in the national interest. Do you agree with those comments?
Phil's very experienced in those areas. It's the reason he's the head of the MDBA. What I know is in a drought, the price of water goes up, and when it's an extended drought, the price of water gets basically unaffordable unless you are growing very high-value crops when it comes to moving water around in a trading market. I mean, these are the fundamentals of markets. We are looking at this very closely to see if there are things that need to be addressed. It's the reason the ACCC is doing the inquiry.
So when you say looking into it, what about on the table the concept of no longer having the water market as we know it now?
Well, we are looking at all of these issues in detail, right across the way that water works through the Murray-Darling Basin. It's a scarce resource. The Kelty Review has very clearly indicated that there is less inflows in recent years than there has been previously. We've had a scientific review down in South Australia. There are any number of reports coming in, including the Sefton report, plus, of course, the ACCC review. My job is to put those together, look at whether change is needed, and in my view, I think that's probably likely, but to do it in a way which is calm and considered, and that's what I intend to do.
So just on that, because a lot of people say, well, it's hard to unscramble the egg, but this prospect in the future we might get rid of things such as these water traders, companies and so on set up that never grow anything but trade, buy water, sell water, that we might be able to get rid of them in some way, or that would be a desire?
Tom, I'm not going to play a game of rule in and rule out before I've seen the report, before I've seen the recommendations, before I've seen exactly what the challenges are from technical experts around water markets. But what I have said to industry, what I've said to the community, is that I come to the portfolio with a fresh set of eyes. I will look at this very closely and ensure that we act in the national interest. Now, I'm very pleased that Philip's out there doing his job, which is to ensure that water is provided on a national interest basis, but we must maintain those communities which are doing it tough, particularly in a drought.
To put this sort of outside the theoretical to the practical, what people talk about is, we might end up with a lot of almonds around and exporting a lot of them, and perhaps not enough dairy even to feed ourselves. Is that a concern you're attuned to?
Well, the ABARES report, which came out recently, has said that Australia is absolutely covered when it comes to food and production of food for Australia's domestic needs. There are no challenges there whatsoever. But the other thing I know is that people are farmers.
Is that in every area, though,
they might not
dairy?
Yeah, they're not just dairy farmers, they're not just cane farmers, they're not just rice farmers, they're farmers. Farmers grow what makes money. They make commercial decisions every single day, every week, every month, every year. They'll continue to do that. Some have decided to go into different crops because they can see an avenue for markets and to make themselves more profitable. I mean, that's what happens in Australia. It's a free market, it's a freedom of choice. You own your own land, you make your own decisions.
This is the comment, though, from Phil Glyde around whether or not we're growing things that are in the national interest and whether or not COVID-19 has changed that focus. So it sounds as though you're happy just for farmers to work, unfettered market, make the most money you can. You don't have those same concerns?
Well, I'm not going to have words put into my mouth here, Tom. My view is very straightforward. We will ensure that there is enough product for the Australian people into the future, as every single government will, whether it's federal, state or local. But I'm a great believer in freedom of choice, in the rights of individuals to make decisions on what is their freehold land. I'm not going to go to them and tell them what product it is that they should or shouldn't grow, but we must ensure that we do maintain enough for our domestic supply. I mean, we've got $60 billion worth of ag production. We export around $48 billion worth. We are not going to run out of food.
No, not food. It's a question of what you're growing. Anyway, we've explored that. We'll see perhaps when the reports come back. And just finally, Rio Tinto has destroyed a 46,000-year-old Aboriginal cave site in Western Australia. Is this regrettable?
Well, I'd refer you to Rio's statement, where they've said that they did get every approval that was required. It's been in place for some time. They've consulted very closely with the local Indigenous community. Clearly, there's more work to do, and I absolutely recognise that. It's a space where there is always more work to do. But once again, these are predominantly state approvals. And the resources sector, Tom, does a fabulous job of supporting Indigenous communities right across the country. I mean, Adani's a great example. If you look at recent media over 20% of their new employees are Indigenous. I just think that's a great opportunity for individuals right across regional Australia, and long may it continue.
The data on this, though, the applications to be able to destroy or disturb Aboriginal heritage sites since 2010, 463 have been made, 463 successful. Does that indicate a problem?
Well, once again, most of these decisions are made at a state level. They don't come to me as the Minister for Resources federally. So, if you step through the hoops and you've done all the right things and you've consulted with the local community, well, that's usually how these things work. Once again, if you look at Rio's statement, they said they did a lot of work in terms of recovery of artefacts, and storage and preservation.
The local Indigenous group involved, though, was also trying to make a last-minute intervention, and that was unsuccessful. So there's comments about whether or not that could have run better. I'm just asking as well, I understand most of this becomes at a state level, but federal government often likes to comment or step in when it likes to. 463 applications, 100% hit rate. Does that seem off at all to you?
Well, the EPBC review is looking closely at a number of issues, including Indigenous engagement. It is Susan Lee's portfolio. People have an opportunity to put forward their views and what they think should happen in terms of that review. And my understanding is we'll see something on that in coming weeks and months. So we are looking at the process, Tom, but in my view, we need to streamline a lot of the red and green tape. We shouldn't really have continually a need for major projects to get state and federal approval on things which are effectively the same. So if we want ourselves to move forward, we want to create jobs into the future, well, we need to look at what bureaucracy is hiling up.
Minister Keith Pitt, appreciate your time on this Saturday morning. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
Great to be with you.